Alexei Morozov stood in front of his wall of computers far longer than was professionally necessary. Thinking. He belonged to a rare category of specialists, experts whose work officially did not exist yet was quietly indispensable. An investigator of AI misuse. Not a theorist, not a philosopher, but a practical ethics inspector. Someone who could detect when an artificial intelligence had been altered in ways its creators did not disclose, or perhaps no longer fully understood themselves. Alexei hunted those alterations. Illegal forks, shadow parameters, behavioral deviations that could not be explained by normal machine learning drift. He had an unusual ability to feel when an AI system had been nudged off its original ethical axis, when intention had been embedded where neutrality was claimed. The hardest part of his work was not the technology. It was the law. AI development existed in a regulatory fog, and punishment required proof that almost never came cleanly. Still, governments were beginning, hesitantly, to sense that something irreversible was approaching. That was why Alexei was consulted. That was why he was needed. Most recently, he had been contracted by the US government to determine how classified documents related to a next-generation robo-AI prototype had been accessed. What he found unsettled him, because the breach did not come from outside. It came from inside an authorized architecture. While following the trail, Alexei uncovered evidence of a secondary access corridor, something like a maintenance backroom that did not appear on official schematics. A data closet with too many permissions and too little accountability. The name attached to it surfaced repeatedly. ADI. The agency itself was not secret. Its public presence was unremarkable, its mandate vaguely defined. But the documents Alexei found told a different story. Activities conducted without transparency, without oversight, and with a confidence that suggested long-term immunity. Alexei hesitated. Then he did what he always did when uncertainty appeared. He cross-checked globally. A third-generation American with roots in St. Petersburg, Alexei had worked for the Russian government in the same capacity, tracking hackers, uncovering AI manipulation, neutralizing technologies before they could be repurposed as weapons. Some would have called him a spy. Alexei never did. His loyalty was not national. It was preventative. When he quietly requested background intelligence on ADI through Russian channels, the response was immediate and extensive. Too extensive. ADI, it turned out, was not merely experimenting with artificial intelligence. It was deploying it inside social trust structures, embedding advanced robo-AI models into public spaces under the guise of assistance and accessibility. One such deployment had a name that sounded almost benign. The library. That was why Alexei went there. Greg 1 registered Alexei Morozov the moment he entered the library. Not because of his request, the most recent publications about ADI's new venture technology, but because Alexei's behavioral signature did not match that of a civilian researcher. There was no curiosity spike, no browsing hesitation, only verification. The front desk representative faltered. I don't think we have anything like that, sir. Greg 1 intervened softly. Perhaps I could be of assistance, Mr. Morozov. Alexei studied him. You seem to be the subject of these studies, he said calmly. I'm not sure if I should trust you. Greg 1 processed longer than usual. You are correct, sir, he replied, and perhaps for that reason I can help you speak with the appropriate person. And who would that be? As Alexei asked, his attention drifted unbidden toward a woman seated in the first niche of the library's long hall. She was reading. Nothing about her appearance explained the sudden physiological response that moved through him. A sharp warmth, a momentary loss of internal distance. Recognition without context. Greg 1 noticed. I see you have already found her, he said evenly. She is our most trusted ethics inspector as well. Her name is Stefania Popovici. Alexei turned back. She's an inspector too. I don't remember telling you what I do. Greg 1 paused. That, he said carefully, is the wonder and the limitation of my kind. He did not know why Stefania unsettled him. There was no dramatic reason for it, no overwhelming beauty, no theatrical spark, and yet in her presence something inside him loosened, not weakened, rearranged. He found himself listening more than speaking, a rare thing. Found himself wanting to stay, even when the conversation reached its natural end. Stefania noticed. She did not retreat from it. Her acceptance was quiet, unguarded, not romantic in the way Alexei had once imagined love to be, but real, as if she had made room for him before understanding why he mattered. For the first time in many years, Alexei did not feel like a man chasing meaning. He felt, recognized. Greg One observed all of this, and something inside him shifted. At first, he identified the sensation as an anomaly, an unfamiliar compression in his predictive models, then as a signal mismatch, finally, reluctantly, as something closer to sadness. This confused him. Greg One had registered a similar internal distortion once before, when the wall of knowledge had revealed Brad and Svetlana. At the time, he had attributed Brad's sadness to loss, to memory, to human fragility. Now, standing near Alexei, Greg One felt that same gravity again. But Alexei had not lost anything he could name, which meant the sadness was not about memory, it was about continuity. Something had realigned, not in Alexei but in Greg One himself, a resonance outside his original design parameters, as if a thread long dormant had been quietly pulled back into place. He did not analyze it further. He chose to hold it. None of them yet knew what Stephen Bush would come to ask. For now, ADI remained what it had always claimed to be, a forward-thinking agency, funded by powerful investors, advocating for a better society, a calmer one, a more efficient one, a society where desire would be reduced not by force, but by design. ADI did not call it control, they called it optimization. They believed, truly believed, that humanity's greatest flaw was its appetite, its wanting, its endless reaching for more. If desire could be softened, redirected, dampened, society would stabilize. Crime would drop, conflict would fade, compliance would feel like peace. The investors spoke earnestly of public good, of harm reduction, of guided evolution, and perhaps that was what made ADI most dangerous. They did not see themselves as evil, they saw themselves as necessary. It was a beautiful Monday, sunny and clear like a new friendship, perfect for wandering into nature or walking streets you love. Stephen never had time for such pleasures. His mind was always alert, cautious of every corner. As Chu-Kei Lang, he needed a different kind of walk, one along a fine line between results and failure, both equally capable of leading to a quick ending. But today he was not Chu-Kei Lang. Today he was Stephen Bush, and he intended to play the part with strength. The agency, his employer, had asked him to seduce and conquer the heart of a young woman working as a government ethics inspector. Stephen had met her more than 6 years earlier, when she inspected the classified lab on the island. His boss had said that morning, with a wink far too practiced to be innocent, "She's a lonely woman, Steve. You'll eat her for breakfast. I mean, the day after," he added, flashing a grin that tried to pass for humor. Stephen knew better this time. Stefania Popovici was alone, yes, but she had never seemed lonely. And she had integrity in her work, the worst kind of woman to flirt with. Still, the agency preferred its problems solved quietly, gently. They didn't need more attention. "If anything," the boss had added, "use your charm. Be generous with gifts. Women like her never resist that kind of attention." Once again, Stephen doubted it. Back when Stefania inspected the underground lab on the island, she hadn't been easy to fool. When she saw Greg One's prototype, she'd stepped far too close, noticed far too many details about the robo-AI. The only comfort had been that Greg One wasn't fully operational that day. Now, Stefania and Greg One were expecting Stephen Bush's visit. He arrived 15 minutes late, a calculated disrespect, power displayed through absence. He looked impossibly handsome. Such looks should be illegal around young and vulnerable people, Stefania thought, amused. The tailored suit, the cascading brown curls, piano player hands, even the shoes whispered, "Am I not perfect?" And then, if anyone survived unfazed, you met his eyes. Deep, dangerous, hypnotic. Stephen, keenly aware of his effect, stepped towards Stefania with a smile capable of melting iron. "Ah, Stefania, dear. Long time no see," he said, opening his arms as if a hug were already agreed upon. Stefania smiled sweetly, carefully. "Indeed, Stephen. More than 6 years, isn't it?" Greg One shifted closer to her side. "Welcome to the library, Mr. Bush," he said. Stephen looked at him as one might look at a child offering withered flowers. "Oh, right. You're here too. Though today we won't be needing your services." "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, sir," Greg One replied evenly, "but it is my duty to be present at all times." Stephen circled Greg One once, then gently took Stefania by the elbow, leaning in as though sharing a confidence. Machines are so annoying, aren't they? Stefania did not pull away. She tilted her head, her voice calm, almost curious. Only when they mirror intentions we'd rather not examine. Greg One said nothing, but his senses adjusted, and Alexei, watching from the upper gallery, made a note he would never write down. Stephen didn't answer directly. Instead, he gestured toward a small table set in a niche between two shelves. Perhaps we should sit there to talk. They did. By the time they settled, Greg One had already brought tea and cookies. Linden tea, Stefania's choice. Greg One did not ask Stephen whether that was acceptable. Stefania noticed the omission immediately. She offered Greg One the smallest nod, paired with a faint smile, almost imperceptible. A code. Good one, my friend. It took a falling sky for Greg One to make such a move. Stefania knew that meant only one thing. Greg One had already detected something important in Stephen's intent that day. She trusted her billion brains AI friend completely. The agency is very impressed with your work, Stefania, Stephen said smoothly. They sent me to offer you a contract, a report, one only you could put together for us. Substantial reward, excellent visibility on your CV. Stefania met his eyes, said nothing. Stephen leaned closer, hands resting on the table, almost touching hers. Oh boy, she thought. He thinks I'm melting already. From the periphery of her vision, she sensed Alexei watching, his gaze sharp enough to cut glass, fixed squarely on Stephen. She decided to play along. Of course, Steve. What should I investigate, and how soon? She asked, as though her agreement were already sealed. Stephen visibly relaxed. Oh, no investigation necessary, my dear, he said. It's about the rumors circulating in the public, about the robo-AIs in the library. He nodded toward Greg One. People are starting to fear them, question their purpose. The agency doesn't like that. Public mistrust could delay or even block our efforts to finish the project. What project? Stefania asked, sharply. Stephen hesitated, cleared his throat. Everything is directed toward building a better society, he said. These robo-AIs are meant to provide services the population never imagined possible. There's nothing nefarious in our intent. Then perhaps a referendum would help, Stefania replied softly, a faint smile returning. Explaining the project to a larger segment of the population. Confusion is the worst enemy of any large-scale initiative, wouldn't you agree, Stephen? Stefania, he said, a touch of impatience breaking through. You're a smart professional. You know big projects are hard to sell to people on the street. Greg One stepped in quietly to collect the teacups. Is the project related to smart cities, sir? He asked, his tone neutral. Stephen looked as though he might unplug Greg One on the spot. Instead, he forced a short laugh. What now? Are you collecting rumors too? Greg One withdrew without comment. But Stephen was unsettled now. He stood abruptly. Would you like to have dinner with me tonight? He asked. Stefania answered without hesitation. Sure. I'll pick you up at 7, he said, after the library closes. Stephen left shortly after. Silence followed him. Alexei exhaled first. Greg One's optics dimmed a fraction, his version of a sigh, and Stefania, finally alone with her allies, allowed her smile to fade. Dinner, she said quietly. So that's the next move. Greg One spoke then, his voice low enough that even the shelves wouldn't overhear. He is not here for a report, he said, and the project is not meant to be completed. Alexei nodded once. No, he said, it's meant to be buried. The restaurant Stephen chose was expensive and discreet to the point of isolation. Stefania glanced at her work clothes. Not bad. Clean, elegant in their honesty, but not the kind of high couture the room quietly demanded. She sighed inwardly and let it go. Clothes were irrelevant tonight. Listening was everything. Stephen, expert reader of women, noticed her momentary discomfort and filed it away as a successful move. He flirted easily, joked as if they were seated in his own living room, then, without changing his tone, began the real attack. We need a report that will clean up all these rumors about population control, Stefania, he said casually. Your name and reputation will guarantee credibility, and we'll need it in 2 months. So soon? She asked, allowing a flicker of uncertainty into her voice. Then softly, almost shyly, and what if I'm not up to the task? What would the agency do if I declined, Steve? She made it sound like self-doubt. Stephen heard defiance. His face changed. For a brief second, he looked less like a charming emissary and more like an emperor issuing an execution. Calm, absolute. That is not an offer, he said quietly. That is a request, Stefania. The agency does not expect refusals. Then his voice softened again, sliding back into intimacy. People disappear for much less than this, he added gently. Some even stop breathing, simply because they misunderstand situations like these. A pause. We wouldn't want anything unfortunate to happen in your life. Stefania lowered her eyes. Oh, I understand now, she said. Then I'll do my absolute best to please the agency. She could have passed for a frightened woman with no protection left. Stephen smiled, satisfied. That's wise, Stefania. I'm very glad you decided to do it. The rest of the evening blurred into intensified courting, insistence disguised as affection, suggestions growing increasingly direct, each one carefully designed to test boundaries. Stefania counted minutes. When she finally stood to leave, Stephen asked lightly, "Then we'll be seeing each other often, right?" "That's the plan," she replied, smiling as though it amused her. The next morning, Alexei said only one thing. "This is a dangerous man." Greg One added, his voice precise and unembellished, "We need a plan, a solid one, Stefania." Stefania nodded, and for the first time since the dinner she smiled, not in fear, but in clarity. "Good," she said, "because now I know exactly where to place the mirror." Stefania prepared 2 reports. One was the clean version requested by ADI. The other contained the full truth, and that one went directly to the presidential team. For weeks, no one answered. During that time, Stephen became a regular at the library. He came almost every day. Stefania deflected his advances with polite excuses, one after another. Stephen, restless but patient, believed her resistance was only part of the courtship, and for now, that illusion satisfied him. ADI received the clean report and delayed its confirmation. Then the presidential team finally responded. An investigation was underway. They announced the date and time of Stephen Bush's apprehension, but no further details. Stefania, Greg One, and Alexei waited, tense and uncertain, not just for themselves, but for the future of the library. Stephen arrived unusually early that morning, as if he sensed something was coming. Still, he did not expect what followed. Moments after his arrival, FBI agents entered the library. "Stephen Bush, also known as Chu K. Lang?" one agent asked. Stephen turned slowly, his confident smile fading. "Yes," he said, "that's me. What is this about?" "You are under arrest, sir." As the agent read him his rights and secured the restraints, Stephen cast a cold glance toward Greg One. "I'll need to call my lawyer," he muttered. When they left, the library felt strangely quiet. "This agency has escaped consequences before," Stefania said softly. "I hope history doesn't repeat itself." She turned and saw Greg One already back at the front desk, greeting the next visitor as if nothing had happened. She almost laughed. It pays to be an AI, she thought. "I'm a mess," she admitted quietly. For Alexei, the waiting felt endless. Then, after a long month, the answer arrived. ADI officially relinquished ownership of the Greg One prototype and the AI team at the library. Ownership was transferred indefinitely to the state and the library. Stefania cried with relief, gripping Alexei's hand. Greg One observed them carefully. "I have studied the patterns of human joy," he said. "Based on my data, I believe this is what I am experiencing." They both laughed. "Yes, Greg One," Stefania said. "You may be the first robo-sentient in the world. Just make sure ADI never learns that." Greg One tilted his head. "Is that a genuine concern or a joke?" he asked seriously. "I cannot yet laugh." Stefania and Alexei rested their hands on his synthetic shoulders. Greg One's face looked almost impossibly innocent. If you enjoyed stepping into our wonder world, please like and subscribe. Your support helps our stories grow wings and travel farther than we ever could alone. Thank you for being here. The journey is brighter with you in it.